Hello, everybody, and I'm Narendra Kumar, and we are going to do a beautiful story, one more story in the series called the Classic Stories, Master Classic Stories, and this is called The Portrait by Guy de Maupassant. And in this video, we'll be doing the story. In the next video, we'll be doing a vocabulary study of the new words which we got in this story. So let's start the portrait. Hello, there's Milial, said somebody near me. I looked at the man who had been pointed out, as I had been wishing for a long time to meet this Don Juan. Don Juan, somebody who goes after every woman. He was no longer young. His grey hair looked a little like those fur bonnets worn by certain northern peoples, and his long beard, which fell down over his chest, had also somewhat the appearance of fur. So his hair and beard were like fur. He was talking to a lady, leaning towards her, speaking in a low voice and looking at her with an expression full of respect and tenderness. I knew his life, or at least as much as was known of it. He had loved madly several times, and there had been certain tragedies with which his name had been connected. When I spoke to women who were the loudest in his praise and asked them whence came this power, they always answered, after thinking for a while, I don't know. He has a certain charm about him. He was certainly not handsome. He had none of the elegant style that we ascribe to conquerors of feminine hearts. I wondered what might be his hidden charm. Was it mental? I never had heard of a clever saying of his. In his glance, perhaps, or in his voice. The voices of some beings have a certain irresistible attraction, almost suggesting the flavor of things good to eat. One is hungry for them, and the sound of their words penetrates us like a dainty morsel food. A friend was passing. I asked him, do you know Monsieur Milial? Yes, introduce us. A minute later, we were shaking hands and talking in the doorway. What he said was correct, agreeable to hear. It contained no irritable thought. The voice was sweet, soft, caressing, musical. But I had heard others much more attractive, much more moving. One listened to him with pleasure, just as one would look at a pretty little brook, like a small river. No tension of the mind was necessary in order to follow him. No hidden meaning aroused curiosity. No expectation evoked interest. His conversation was rather restful, but it did not awaken in one either a desire to answer, to contradict, or to approve, and it was as easy to answer him as it was to listen to him. The response came to the lips of its own accord as soon as he had finished talking, and phrases turned toward him as if he had naturally aroused them from within you. Aroused them is coming from within you. One thought soon struck me. I had known him for a quarter of an hour, and it seemed as if he were already one of my old friends, that I had known all about him for a long time. His face, his gestures, his voice, his ideas. Suddenly, after a few minutes of conversation, he seemed already to be installed in my intimacy. All constraint disappeared between us. Constraint is stopping something. And had he so desired, I might have confided in him as one confides only in old friends. Certainly there was some mystery about him. Those barriers that are close between most people and that are lowered with time and sympathy, similar tastes, equal intellectual culture, and constant intercourse remove constraint. Those barriers seemed not to exist between him and me, and no doubt this was the case between him and all people, both men and women, whom fate threw in his path. After an hour we parted, separated, went our own way, promising to see each other often, and he gave me his address after inviting me to take luncheon with him in 2 days. I forgot what hour he had stated, and I arrived too soon. He was not yet home. A correct and silent domestic showed me into a beautiful, quiet, softly lighted parlor. I felt comfortable there at home. How often I have noticed the influence of apartments on the character and on the mind. There are some which make one feel foolish. In others, on the contrary, opposite, one always feels lively. Some make us sad, although well lighted and decorated in light colored furniture. Others cheer us up, although hung with somber material. Serious material. Our eye, like our heart, has its likes and dislikes, of which it does not inform us, and which it secretly imposes on our temperament. Imposes its forces on our temperament, on our nature, on our basic nature. The harmony of furniture, walls, the style of an ensemble act immediately on our mental state, just as the air from the woods, the sea, or the mountains modifies our physical natures. I sat down on a cushion covered divan and felt myself suddenly carried and supported by these little silk bags of feathers, as if the outline of my body had been marked out beforehand on this couch. Then I looked about means around. There was nothing striking about the room. Everywhere were beautiful and modest things, simple and rare furniture, oriental curtains which did not seem to come from a department store but from the interior of a harem, and exactly opposite me hung the portrait of a woman. It was a portrait of medium size, showing the head and the upper part of the body, and the hands which were holding a book. She was young, bareheaded. Ribbons were woven in her hair. She was smiling sadly. Was it because she was bareheaded? Was it merely her natural expression? I never have seen a portrait of a lady which seemed so much in its place as that one in that dwelling, in that home. Dwelling means home. Of all those I knew, I have seen nothing like that one. All those that I know are on exhibition, whether the lady be dressed in her gaudiest gown. Gaudy means very crude, very loud, too much color, with an attractive headdress and look which shows that she is posing. First of all before the artist, and then before those who will look at her, or whether they have taken a comfortable attitude in an ordinary gown. Some are standing majestically in all their beauty, which is not at all natural to them in life. All of them have something, a flower or a jewel, a crease in the dress, or a curve of the lip, which one feels to have been placed there for effect by the artist. Whether they wear a hat or merely their hair, one can immediately notice that they are not entirely natural. Why? One cannot say without knowing them, but the effect is there. They seem to be calling somewhere on people whom they wish to please and to whom they wish to appear at their best advantage. And they have studied their attitude, sometimes modest, sometimes haughty, arrogant. What could one say about this one? This portrait. He's talking about this portrait. She was at home and alone. Yes, she was alone. For she was smiling as one smiles when thinking in solitude of something sad or sweet, and not as one smiles when one is being watched. She seemed so much alone and so much at home that she made the whole large apartment seem absolutely empty. She alone lived in it, filled it, gave it life. Many people might come in and converse, laugh, even sing. She would still be alone with a solitary smile, and she alone would give it life with her pictured gaze. That look also was unique. It fell directly on me, fixed and caressing, without seeing me. All portraits know that they are being watched, and they answer with their eyes which see, think, follow us without leaving us. From the very moment we enter the apartment, they inhabit. This one did not see me. It saw nothing, although its look was fixed directly on me. I remembered the surprising verse of Baudelaire, and your eyes, attractive as those of a portrait. They did indeed attract me in an irresistible manner. Those painted eyes which had lived, or which were perhaps still living, threw over me a strange, powerful spell. Oh, what an infinite and tender charm! Like a passing breeze, like a dying sunset of lilac, rose and blue, a little sad like the approaching night which comes behind the somber frame, and out of those impenetrable eyes, those eyes created by a few strokes from a brush, hide behind them the mystery of that which seems to be and which does not exist, which can appear in the eyes of a woman, which can make love blossom within us. The door opened and M. Milial entered. He excused himself for being late. I excused myself for being ahead of time. Then I said, might I ask you, who is this lady? He answered, that is my mother. She died very young. And then I understood whence came the inexplicable, cannot be explained, attraction of this man. What a lovely story. This is a beautiful story about. I think we don't have to explain. If we explain, the story will be spoiled. Let us leave the story as it is. Let us hear it again. Let us read it again and again till the end of our life. These are the great stories written by great authors. That is why we have this series called Master Classic Stories. Thank you so much.